We delve into all things relationships, dating, marriage, relationships, and intimacy. So if you're looking for a show that's going to bring you a fresh perspective and a real conversation, look no further than the Haven Podcast. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Are you looking for a podcast?
Today about our guest, Sandy from SakredShe. I'm excited to have you on our show on today. I know our guests are going to be excited with all the information that you're going to bring. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it and let you introduce yourself and tell us all about who you are, you know, how you got into your work and things of that nature. So the floor is now over to you.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, SakredShe, basically, Sacred with a K. I'm Sandy Sembler, and SakredShe is an internationally known women's group. And I do work with men as well, as long as they come in coupledom. But it really was founded from my own healing journey. You know, I believe that our life is our dharma, and God's given us this beautiful opportunity to learn and then alchemize, learn, alchemize, or experience alchemize, and then we can, gift it back to the world. It doesn't have to necessarily be in a teaching format the way I'm teaching and mentoring and coaching, but it actually isn't just that whole how we do anything is how we do everything. And so if we're always up leveling and always looking in a healthy way of up leveling, being grateful for one foot in gratitude, one foot in desire, one foot in gratitude, one foot in desire. And that beautiful we're magnetized towards something greater. And I think that something greater is essentially what God has put in our life, but through our own choices, our own free will, perhaps generational curses, things have been passed down, and sometimes just good old stubbornness and honestly subconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs that have, thought forms that have been spoken over us, right? Or to us. I really work, I got God bumps when I say that. I mean, I really believe that a lot of our conditioning is done while we're in the womb. I really do, right? So SakredShe was born, honestly, because I had a history of doing really well with businesses and not so great with my personal life, and with it came with men. And I had an intervention with Tony Robbins about a little over a decade ago, the motivational speaker, 4 hours with him at an event. And, I raised my hand, and next thing I know, I'm in the vortex with him. And he pointed out that I was an attractive woman who had a great business, but I was showing up very masculine in the world. And I was basically man-eating many of the men that I was with, including emasculating my son. And I was like, what? I had never heard this before. It made so much sense, though, when I actually left that event, and I was already consulting and working with women around the world and helping them with their businesses. But when I took a look at the core issue, if you may, their core complaint, it really was around feeling pulled in all different places, a lot of guilt and shame, the lowest levels of consciousness there are, nothing that God wants us to be experiencing. And they weren't giving themselves grace. And I realized a lot of it was they were operating more in their masculine, which is opposite of our orientation, and not really a lot of the feminine flow and essence and joy. And I know you know this, but I'll share it with your audiences. Joy is something that we are born with. It's nothing that we have to do or be. It just is because we are here. Happiness is a little bit more conditional. And when I realized, when I looked at myself at, I think it was 40 when I had the intervention. Yeah, I just turned 40. So it's 13 years ago. I went, wow, where's my childlike joy? Do I even know the little girl inside of me anymore? And the answer was no. And so I did a lot of practices and a lot of work on, how to find her. And I've worked with some of the best teachers around the world and certified out the yin yang. I love to learn. So my backpack back here is chock full of things that I bring back to the world. And so SakredShe was really founded from my own curiosity when I finally tapped into my feminine energy, which is all about being curious, right? And all kids, by the way, are feminine until they hit puberty. And then that's when the masculine comes in. And what do we do in society? We squash our kids, especially here in the States, I'll say it, is we squash their curiosity. I mean, kids are made, the feminine in all of us is made to be curious. Life gets really boring in partnerships. Somebody comes to me being married 25 years. One of the main reasons why it's gone flat, like a flat Coca-Cola, is because they stop being curious about the person in front of them, the person they go to bed with every single night. and lives become mundane. And so I believe we can make art out of the mundane, including even brushing our teeth or washing the dishes or what have you.
So I want to stop for a minute and go back to when you said that you discovered that your intervention with Tony was that he told you were showing up masculine. What does that look like? Because I think a lot of times we don't understand that we're showing up that way. We think we're
Yes.
feminine, but what does that really look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked the same thing. I was like, what? Because, I'll say this too. The feminine and masculine, alpha, omega, yin and yang is in all of us. This is not about man, woman. I'll say that. However, most women here on earth, at least for now, are all, the feminine is their core essence, but they probably have a masculine mask because of their conditioning. Maybe they grew up without a father. They were raised to not trust men because either they were told that or because they learned that through experiences. So what it looks like, again, I'll explain what feminine and masculine is, just without the gender attached to it. Okay. The feminine is life. Life-giving. It is vitality. It's curiosity. It is actually freedom. It's nature. It's the essence of everything. It's the five senses alive. It's the flow of life, right? The masculine is going to be the go mode. It is the getting things done, master time and space. It's our integrity. It's our valor. It's our showing up as we show up. Like, showing up on time, for example. And my assistant already messaged me. She's like, I'm so sorry that I dropped that. I could have sworn I put that link in your calendar. That's her masculine owning the fact that she didn't do it, right? A toxic masculine would not have owned that. She would have made excuses. So that's an example in real life time, right? So if you think about it like this, if you think about a river flowing, the riverbed what contains the water. That's the masculine. The river ever changing through the seasons, that's the feminine. If you are in your feminine, which I hope for most women out there, if that's their core, we're experiencing, and that's experiencing, the feminine is experiencing, right? We are being it. And so we're probably experiencing many emotions, sometimes at the same time. That's not a bad thing. But if we have a strong masculine, stature as well, and a harmonized masculine, then we're not bleeding our emotions everywhere. Right. However, that doesn't mean that you don't feel them. And that's why, in the SakredShe method, which is what we've trademarked, which is what we put out there in the world, it's the way I teach the work, which is to be able to feel it all, because you have to feel it to heal it. And, there's nowhere out there that says God doesn't want us to feel our feelings. It's just a matter of how are we emoting them. And so I realize as the more and more I speak to women, that some of them have been raised very prim and proper, that we're not supposed to share our emotions. And that's actually not true. And let's face it, how many of us have actually been in a relationship with a man, or we've seen men that they're so detached from their emotions that they're like a robot, and they're so dense in their masculinity. Women are too these days, where they're so detached from their emotions that they're operating out of logic, but they're not operating out of heart. And so I always say this, and it's not super popular. If we had more women would be in charge, if we actually had a more healed masculine. And I'll tell you what I mean. The masculine is the one that honors their word, right? They don't go, oh, I don't feel like it. I don't like her or him anymore because it doesn't feel right. Now, the men can do that too. I fell out of love, whatever the heck that means, right? I mean, so I'm saying it works both ways, including even the way you and I are talking here. You set up a beautiful masculine structure. We've got our Zoom rectangles here. And what you and I do within the confines of that is our art, and our art is our emotions. Our art is our feminine. You can tell. I mean, I'm a very feminine teacher, but what I've done, my masculine is so wants to show up in integrity and authenticity that you better believe I've either lived it or studied it. And most of the time with me, I won't teach something I haven't already lived. And that's why my programs are always up leveling, because I'm up leveling and my relationships are changing. And I'll say this too, the last 5% of healing really happens when we're in relationship. I don't care what anybody says. It's actually quite easy to be single. because it's about me, myself, and I, and maybe my kiddos if they're home. And I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I can lament and have a problem not having a partner, but that gives me significance there, right? But when we're in partnership, it is divinely guided to trigger things within us. So for us to elevate our relationship with our higher power, for me, it's God, that we could actually see our partner through the eyes of the divine, through the eyes of God. Now, where we get in trouble is where codependency comes in because of upbringing, where we're actually trying to please. Pleasing energy is very toxic feminine. A healthy, so a woman or a feminine feminine being all of us, who is actually quite is boundaried. Our boundaries are masculine. Someone who is boundaried will not be codependent. They will know that they 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 know they are a child of God, and they do not have to put up with being treated like crap, right? And you're nodding your head, yes. I mean, it's so true. And I grew up like I wanted love so desperately from boys and men, because my dad left and it was gone for quite a while during those formative years. Mama, God bless her, raised me not to trust men because she had been burned, and I understand it. And I'm grateful that I have a work ethic like an ox, because I've been working since I was 12, like I said. And I'm who you want in the foxhole. If there's a problem, you want Sandy Sembler in your foxhole. However, what that did, that hypervigilance, because I was always worried, that undercurrent, right, was me worrying, is our house going to foreclose again? Even at 50 years old, when I have plenty of money in the bank. I mean, I even owned a mortgage company. Of course I did. Subconsciously, I needed to actually control, finances. I mean, when I started realizing this is where I started working with trauma within my programs, because I was realizing that the little t trauma, was honestly controlling me. And then the enemy will totally work with those things as well. So again, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to think about how I've lovingly and also painstakingly used my life to teach. And it isn't always pretty. I've done the walk of shame many times, wondering like, how did I end up in this relationship? Or, oh my gosh, if I would have just parented my son differently. The walk of shame has a lot of different connotations. And that's actually the book that I'm writing now, is about how we women especially are being pulled at so many levels, that we don't give ourselves the grace that we really honestly we deserve. It's already there. We just have to, by the way, receive it. The feminine is receivership. One of the reasons why I see women beating themselves up is their feminine energy is so packed down. They haven't tapped into it. Because once you realize and you get curious about it, we are receiving what God has given us. And that is the grace and the mercy that we all need. And that's the masculine in men as well. Men that are eaten up with guilt and shame, they probably have mommy issues or something like that.
Oh yeah. I think this is really good, because it's making me I was listening to something earlier today, and it was a lady. She was talking about, she had went into she had a therapist, and her therapist did not realize that, which I mean, it was just a short clip, and it made me question a lot of the stuff that the lady said, because I'm a therapist. I'm like, I hate when people just throw these blanket statements out. But anyway, she didn't realize that she had poverty trauma.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, like you said, poverty trauma really does affect the way that we show up, our femininity, because we're constantly trying to control the narrative so that we never go back to that place again.
Amen, sister. And I'll tell you too, how I got in front of Tony years ago. I share this, and you being a therapist, I'm curious your thoughts on this, is, I went to Christian-based counseling, and I did therapy the masculine way 3 times a week, left my partner who was abusive with my 10-year-old son at the time. And I started a new business. I didn't date during those 2 years. We were going through our divorce, and my therapist at the time, and this was, oh my gosh, I have no idea where these things come from, but I think God agrees.
Yeah.
Is that it, we didn't talk about why I was in the relationship. It reminded me of years ago when I had an eating disorder, which came from wanting to control my environment. Because I was trying to control something in my life because my parents' divorce was so chaotic and my life was so, I didn't realize it was trauma until honestly in the last, few years, I started studying complex PTSD. And so the therapist, she was wonderful and she meant well, but she didn't talk to me about trauma. She didn't talk to me about why I was doing it. It was just a matter of getting out of it. And a lot of times where how embodiment came to me, after I was finished with therapy, and what happened is that, I've done trauma therapy since, and I've done EMDR and some pieces that came up, because the more secure we are and stable, that our nervous system can relax, and then we may have memories come up. And I had something that happened the end of 2022 that brought up a memory when I was 3. And I give a lot of credit to my partner because, with John, I've been with him long enough. We've been married now 5 years, that my nervous system was calm and regulated, so that my brain went, okay, you're safe to have this memory. This memory is going to come back. And then that did. And I promised I would never go to therapy again because I was so frustrated that she never talked to me about any of this stuff, and nothing against therapy at all. Again, the brain will think something, we're doing something just by talking about it. That's why so many therapists I hear, and I've seen, and there's a lot more tools involved now because we're looking for everlasting change. And I know you're a woman of integrity, or I wouldn't be here right now because I checked you out. And so because I want to make sure that I'm aligned with someone who we're speaking the same language. So the embodiment piece is how we get muscle memory. And like we practice piano, we practice meditation, we even practice devotion, we practice yoga. We can practice literally being joyful. We can practice gratitude. We can practice devotion, and everything's art. So because everything's a habit. And I think too, back to your part about poverty, when I find someone is having an issue with their finances, it generally is around receivership, that they don't necessarily feel worthy, that they deserve to receive. And so just a simple practice is, to use that word again that we like to use in SakredShe, is when someone says thank you, or I love that shirt. Are you the first woman to go, oh, this thing, I got it from Target, and you dismiss that compliment versus like, oh, I received that. And I say I received that versus thank you, because it trains the nervous system, it trains the brain to go, oh, receiving, abundance, receiving, gratitude, receiving, right? Now, the other reason why someone may be having some issues with finances is their masculine so out of whack, they don't follow through with anything. And our follow throughs are masculine as well. So you take the two of those, mama issues and daddy issues, and you're just basically, you're suffering. And most of your money, like me, until it wasn't, most of my wealth truly was built through hustling. And that's why I'm not a big proponent of the boss babe culture, or this hustle culture, because we know it so well, and a lot of it's done from survival, little T trauma, divorce, latchkey kid, all the things. So again, I know all this, but it's nice to kind of put it through my lens too, because as I've, all these certifications and all these teachers I've worked with and these facilitators, I've been amazed to see that it all, when I boil it down and I see someone who is not living a fulfilled life, it generally is that they have these two energies imbalanced in some way. And it generally isn't because they want to be more dude-like. It's because they're scared to death to trust another, which is a feminine wound, right? Like I mentioned earlier. And then so they think they need to compete. So it's interesting too, to put it through these lens. And I agree that there's so much out there on the internet. I know for me, I really wanted to take masculine and feminine energetics, and honestly, girl, bring it home, because it's easy to go to a workshop. It's easy to go to Sedona and dance around a fire, or go to like even a women's group at church. But then I come home and everybody left it. They didn't take the garbage out. They let the dog out. The dog pooped on the floor. And how am I going to actually make art with that? And there's a way to make art with dog poop being on the floor and not lose your mind. We call it making art out of the mundane. I like to teach women how to sting a man back to consciousness. And what I mean by that is not the typical way we do it in a toxic way, which is complaining, criticizing, and comparing.
Huh?
As soon as we do that as women, we have literally deflated either that our little boy or that big little boy,
Yeah.
right? And it is something that we do. That's the toxic feminine, by the way. And I have a beautiful DIY course that really helps us train to, in 30 days, you will reset your relationship that you're in, but especially the one that you're in with yourself, with your own masculine. And I believe we gave you a code to offer a discount too for your guests too before you publicize this. Is make sure if you don't have it, Kelsey will get it to you. I'm so proud of that course because it came from my own journey of I didn't realize I was emasculating my own son. I didn't realize that I was putting down my own son. And, I actually studied under, Dr. Emerson, who wrote the book, Love and Respect. And, when I was able to put this into my course about children as well, I truly believe most men, okay, and now I'm going to go back to men and women. One of my certifications, I studied 100 men, the same men for a year, and we had a different dissertation every month. What I loved was that one of the months it was around, do men really like strong women? Do they really like capable women? And 99 of the 100 said that they loved a strong woman who was capable and confident, but had enough confidence in herself that she trusted herself to be vulnerable, that she knew when, I mean, again, goosebumps, like to relinquish the control. And that comes with a very self-aware, very, a woman who knows who she is, who's not afraid to say, ouch, if her feelings get hurt. She's not afraid to respond. The feminine responds. We're looking for something to respond to. So does that make sense?
So when I tell you, it makes plenty of sense because I remember I was in a relationship once, and he would say things, and he would be so, because he was hurt. And so the way sometimes that he would say things, it would hurt my feelings. And so I would let him get it out in the very aggressive like. And so I would say, I don't like what you said. That actually hurt my feelings. And as soon as I said it hurt my feelings, it brought him all the way down. And he would say, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so we could have a conversation. But that it helped him so much. But it also helped me because I was able to stay in being a woman. Because as a woman, you hurt my feelings.
Amen.
You're talking to me as though I'm a man. I'm a woman. And
that's a good point. Great point. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I see you. I see that part of you. I do. And again, the seer in all of us is the masculine, but the feeling part of me can really feel you right now. That's the feminine, right? So I see that. And I'll share something since you said that. I like to talk about there's 3 stages of communication. There's 3 stages of love. So what you just did with him is we call it second stage. First stage is very baby love, baby communication. Me, what about me? What about me? I want that. It's kind of whiny, and it's needed sometimes, especially when we're kids, right? But the second stage is if most of us did communicate in this way, it would be we'd have a healthier planet for sure. Your needs are my needs are my needs, and vice versa. You were able to articulate how you felt, and that was beautiful. It worked. Now the third stage is where I like to really work. Now that's necessary, and I definitely teach people how to communicate like that in partnership and with their kids and all the things. But the third stage is actually where we're able to truly see like the divine, see God in the other. And we know that we're there to help people up level. And there's an artful way to do it. We call it sacred theater in our world. And in that case, something that would work could be, ouch. Just that one word, and you're smiling, it, would have done the same thing for a good man. Right. Because again, one of the things we studied too with those men was like, what is their number one thing that they want is for us to be happy. I have a recording called How to Ask a Man for Anything, literally, and it works. It never fails. I'm telling you, it works. And some women who see it as like, that's manipulative. I'm like, that's through their eyes because they probably manipulate. What I've done though with my studies is I've learned the art of speaking men, and most men want us to be happy. They don't care. They want, and happy is the word. It would really make me happy. It would really make me happy. And there's more to it than that, but really make me happy. And because I do believe that most men are good men who really want us to be happy. And so again, in that way of the stages of relating, that third stage is a little more theatrical. I mean, it may be, like I mentioned, don't want to leave the poop on the carpet, by the way. Let's go back and pick that up. You could literally take that poop, put it in a poop bag. And if it's something you've been asking your kids to do over and over again, instead of doing it and then, you know, giving them, you know, another reading of it all, take it and basically literally like put it in their seat, put it where they sit at the kitchen table, and you make art with it, right? There's so many fun things that we do in our group, and I'll give you a real time example. Client, she boxed me this morning. She said she we've been working together for several years and just helping her up level, and that happens a lot with people that work with me because they change their relationship with themselves, and then everything starts changing. It's cool. So she's fine. She left a toxic relationship, and most relationships come back to life, but there are a few times that people need to, you know, own the fact that they've been tolerating a lot of misbehavior, not only from their partner but really themselves, right? Because it starts with us. But she's ready to date, so she's supposed to be going out with someone on Friday to the rodeo, and so she says he hasn't reached out. This is someone she's known for a long time, and they've been friends since they were in high school. They talk a lot and text a lot, but we also hear like this queen era is you never ever ever, you know, reach out, you never ever. And you know, there is a part of me when I was really rigid in this work, I thought that too, but it's not just black and white. It isn't. So I reminded her, she goes, I know you've taught me that, you know, this is the first date is like the best, that they're on their best. That could be true. However, this is where your masculine gets logical. The feminine is like, he didn't call me and I'm just gonna, no. But the masculine is like, wait a minute. He mentioned he had a bad day yesterday. He mentioned he's had a bad week, right? And, you know, I'm going to give him feminine grace. And so, but instead of like, but also I'm teaching you how to take that handkerchief and toss it in front of him versus the masculine would be, what time are you picking me up? The master of time and space. That is his responsibility if you want a polarized relationship. So I said, going to the rodeo, you have a pair of cowboy boots? She said, yes. And I said, why don't you put those on? He loves your smile. Take a picture of yourself, let him see the cowboy boots, and then just send and go, can't wait to see you on Friday. If he doesn't pick up that handkerchief and he doesn't say, great, I'll pick you up at 7, sorry I didn't, whatever, then guess what? He may not be your guy, right? But that's an artful way to do stage 3 sacred. Now, stage 2 would be, I'm making my plans and I'd like to know what time you're picking me up. It's still very masculine, right? It's a masculine way to do it. I'd rather give someone grace and then go from there, especially, listen, after the Me Too movement, there are so many men that are afraid to be men. My son told me this. The way it is out there in the world, he's 24, like opening a door sometimes can be crazy. And I've got to learn how to turn this off, but it is fun. At least, hey, I'll show you something. Look at this. I figured this out by accident.
Yeah.
See if it'll do it. Will it do it?
Yeah.
How about that?
Mine to do it. I'm like, everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it. I'm like, I didn't know. I was like, what the heck just happened? But my son, Mean Girls, the movie Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan years ago, when I started studying this work in 2014, there's a Mean Girls 2 that came out, and they're literally the gal is super tomboyish, raised by a single dad in this case, and the guy goes to open the door. She's like, I can do it myself, and then it's all she wrote. And so men don't know how to be men. Men are scared, and we need to. There's a way that I personally am. I believe in women's rights. I totally do, and I also love men, and I believe we can literally hold both poles. You know.
It's such a different time, because like you said, the Me Too movement have men so afraid to even ask you out. And so then you have women who are saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Do I approach men? And it's like, but if you approach men, then you're taking what I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel like you're taking that side, that feminine away from yourself, because as a woman, I still want to be chased. I want to know that
you want to be pursued. Yeah. You want to be pursued. I call it wooed and pursued. And it's the art of dating. And we cover that in my work with SakredShe. There's the art of relating, the art of dating intentionally. Even the way that you do a dating profile, even the way that you show up, because I do agree with you. And like I just mentioned about my client, she did it, by the way, and he's like, oh, thank you. And it was beautiful how he responded. Now, she also has enough self-confidence that if he doesn't respond, she's not just going to show up, because that sets the tone. So I agree with you. I want to be wooed and pursued for the rest of my life. I mean, I think we need to date forever. and ever on both parties. And I'll say this too, again, when I first started doing this work, real estate is my passion. A lot of it comes from my childhood stuff. I realized, as I mentioned earlier, like our house foreclosed, and I didn't realize until recently, the last few years, after I did the trauma work to heal that memory that I had from this babysitter, I realized, like, oh my gosh, my passion for rehabbing houses, the reason why I nest in Airbnbs and hotels and I bring all my creature comfort is because of my childhood. And what a revelation that was for me. And I thought that that's so cool, but my brain was locked in on that. And that doesn't, I mean, literally, like when I go away we go away for a couple months in the summer in the mountains, I take a U-Haul with like my sheepskin and my candles and and it's not that I'm attached to things, but I I mean, everything place to feel like home. And God bless my mama. She could make a refrigerator box beautiful because we moved so many times after daddy left that I know I got it from my mama for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I think that's, I like to, when I'm talking to women, I always start from their childhood because, it's important. There's a root to everything.
Yes.
If you only chop down the flower of a thing, then guess what? It's going to regrow. It's going to regrow in a different direction. It's going to regrow in a different area. But it's going to still regrow. So let's get it. Let's discover it from the root.
Yes.
Let's heal it from the root. And then you can become who it is that you really are meant to be. So even if it can be a place of trauma, but we can still sometimes take a place of trauma and make it beautiful.
Oh, and I mean, listen, we're Phoenix rising. I mean, God makes all things good. It's just a matter of awareness. So when I'm teaching the quadrant of change, I talk about there's awareness. We must have we must even know that there is something going on. It took Tony, that strong masculine energy, because everyone else in my life except my best friend Rachel, who got me there, and SakredShe is basically she's passed now, but SakredShe is honestly given to her. I give a lot of credit because she loved me too much to allow me to stay in my own, BS story. She's like, enough. Yeah, we got to change these patterns, like the ants marching in a line. I believe the feminine in all of us sees our true potential, and she like drew a line in front of the ants marching, and what happens? Scatters. So she got me in front of Tony, and there you go. And that's what I am. I actually went and worked with Tony for several years. I've been trained in his modality. I love being parachuted into a situation, and I can sting you back to consciousness in the best, most beautiful way, where you will still love me, maybe a little frustrated with me, but I will bring something to your awareness, right? And then when two people come together, there's acknowledgement. That's the second part. The third then, and boy, my Zoom's very feminine today. All of these different emotions are coming in, right? The third is acceptance. And I don't mean like resignation, but I mean energetically. And if you would have told me, honestly, sister, that 13 years ago I'd be talking about quantum physics, I would have laughed at you. But in quantum physics, we must be able to, once energetically, that we able are to acknowledge it. When two people come together, the tree fell in the forest. Did it really fall if you didn't see it? I mean, you have to acknowledge it, right? And then there's acceptance. The other part is allowing. We have to be able to allow. And if you think about a sailboat that's sailing, it is going to, going to move faster when it's actually there's a pace, there's the air is hitting it and the wind's hitting it and the sail is just going. We could just kick back like that. And that's when we know, we're living large and we're living in God's wonder. Now, that doesn't mean we don't do our work. We need to do our work to heal. It's not like just sitting back eating bonbons, waiting for somebody to knock on the door to ask me out on a date. We have to do our work. And we think about Ruth and Boaz. I mean, hello, that's like one of the most beautiful love stories that I actually use and in SakredShe. So yeah, I think that I agree with you. And I didn't necessarily work truly with trauma until the last like 4 years. And I went and got trauma informed and trauma trained because there's such a difference. And because I saw it kept coming up. And even when I'm working, we do several quizzes to determine like your attachment styles. And, it's so much more than your love languages. I love those too. But even the love language of apology will tell you, what did you not get as a child? Like the love language of apology. I mean, I can tell you, don't just say, I'm sorry. Don't just say, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. I'm the contrition. Like, I need to know, like, that that what happened. Apologize. And also tell me how we know it's not going to happen again. Because the little girl in me, like, we didn't know daddy and mama were fighting all the time. They didn't let us see it. So one day dad was there, one day he wasn't. So I don't love surprises still. And so that controlling nature, which I've healed so much of that, but when I'm not resourced or I'm feeling uncertain, I start feeling controlling, and my partner knows this too. And this is cool because you teach it to your partner too, who you are. Again, that's not super sexy. That's like, oh, he's 6'4" with beautiful blue eyes, and he's great with my son. There's so much more. That's why I always tell women, if they come in single with me, and this may deter some of your people from working with me, but you're not going to be the same woman in 90 days. The way you see yourself, even the cells will be different. So I got to just hang with me, I promise. And I just got noticed that one of my clients, who I just adore, she fought me tooth and nail at first because she was so stubborn. But she just eloped with her warrior king. And I have widows who come to me who said that they'll never, ever, ever. And there's so much beauty and me being able to observe and let God use me to be this beacon of light. And I just share it in a fun and funky way, and for everlasting change. So it's something. But I agree with you, back to what you said about the dating piece. But it's not black and white. And I'll share this piece too, I think is where I was heading. I'm really great at real estate, right? And my husband has bought 2 houses in his life, and I've bought thousands as a real estate investor, right? There was a part of me that was so rigid, black and white, and not really healthy in my thought process here. I was like, the math means like, oh no, he's the man, he's gonna make these decisions. Well, during before COVID, who knew real estate would blow up, right? We were renting a place in North Carolina, and I'm like watching the real estate go up, and I'm always looking at property. And I let him negotiate the deal, and we lost it over hundreds of dollars. It was ridiculous. And I remember frustrated. I talked to my mentor, and she's like, why in the world are y'all having him do that when he's bought 2 homes? And she said, that's the problem when people just take teachings and they go black and white. The truth, there's truth. And then there's also interpretations of the truth. And we have to be mindful, like you said earlier, who are we listening to? Right. And so we had a conversation. And so I handle the real estate because that's my jam. He's got his strengths as well. But that's the feminine intuition, knowing hey, you know what? I actually am better at this. And the masculine is the one that's like, I'm better at this, right? I mean, the masculine and me was now I'm like, oh no, I'll handle this. And he is healed in his 2 energies too. He's like, you better believe you're going to handle this, right? But that was something that I had to learn, unfortunately, the hard way, and we lost that house, but it was a gift. In fact, I always make art out of everything. So that house was on Hummingbird Lane in Beach Mountain, North Carolina. And I for a while I nagged about this. And so my son even made hummingbird, Mom, you're hummingbirding me. You're hummingbirding me. We made it a verb. So there's hummingbirds everywhere. It's a reminder of the lesson. So there's so many ways. So the hummingbirding has become like a noun in our house. But yeah, I mean, and this is me not following my intuition. My intuition knew for me to step in, but I was so rigid in the teachings because we had just gotten married. I didn't want to offend him. And I went against my own intuition. How many of us do that? And I'm like, I was doing that. And I teach this because DNA, what have you, scared of not being loved. That little girl in me is like, oh, what if? And anyway, so I think, again, if you believe life is Dharma, we're always learning. I mean, I'm not perfect. One of my clients mentioned yesterday, she said, oh, when we were hanging, she said, I overheard you and John having words, and it kind of shocked me at first, but it also made me realize y'all are human. Because again, how we show up in a relationship, how we enter it, how we maintain it, right? How we repair it. 2 things that no one taught me growing up. Maintain and repair, please. I was lucky if I got it, I'm sorry, right? But also even how we leave a relationship, especially if we're talking about, listen, God doesn't want us to be in abusive relationships, period. I mean, I'll just say that and leave it there for now, unless you want to pull on that thread. But I mean, leaving jobs, leaving friendships, even creating a boundary where someone can be in our realm, but not our court. Our courts, but be in our realm. I mean, even parents. One parent might be safe, so they're in your court, but one parent's going to be in your realm. And I wanted love so badly that I'd have I mean, you're in my court. You're my person. Friends, business partners, God, the money I've lost through the years, right? For trusting and just trusting, right? You're shaking your head. So you understand what I'm saying?
Oh gosh, yes, yes, yes. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself because people, we're living in a time where people want to work with people who are talking from experience and who can be transparent.
Yeah.
Transparency means a lot, especially to the community of women that I deal with. Like, if you can be transparent, because
Yes.
that means that I can trust you. I can trust you with my stuff. I can trust that you're going to lead and guide me in the correct direction because
Yes.
you've been there, you have done that, and you have made it through. And then there are some times where we find ourselves still in the midst of what we're teaching. So if I can tell you that, you know what, I'm learning just as much as you're learning at this time, so we're going to do this thing together.
Exactly.
And you know, they can draw on the strength, and then the fact that you I love when you said that I'm doing, and I'm putting it in my own words.
Yeah.
I do and I say as, you know, God gives it to me.
Yes.
You know, that's
Yes.
the beauty of it. This is not my wisdom, but this is the wisdom that God has given me to give to you. So because it's his wisdom for me to give to you, that means it's for you. It's formulated for you.
You. Yes.
Custom made just for you. And
Yes.
so I mean, I just don't see women coming to you and losing in any kind of way, because that's the winning solution all by itself.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I received that too. And it is so true. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, that walk of shame that we all feel going through some things, it just what it does is every experience, because a mirror practice. I'm looking at my mirror over here in my office. I mean, there's nothing more humbling than literally looking in the eyes of another human. But that human, especially if it's you, and you look in the mirror and you're like, what I love about you, Sandy, is what I love about you, Sandy, is. And between everyone, you're like, I received that. And it sounds really weird. But oh my gosh, when's the last time you looked in the eyes of your partner, or really looked in the eyes of your child, or definitely looked in your own eyes? And I mean, there's wisdom there. So thank you for seeing me. I appreciate that. And I agree. And if I ever, get concerned about what are people going to think, I know that that's not coming from my highest self. I know that's coming from that lower mind. Is that coming from the enemy? It's coming from something other that actually the best thing the enemy wants me to do is to not bring my stuff out there to the world. And I know that there's been way too many people who have been served, and I remember that, and I keep the testimonials, and I keep these things. If I ever forget, I can remind myself. And God always just drops like a testimony, or I get a text, or I get an invitation to a baby shower. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Again, it's the humanness in us, to your point. And the world of filters, people want to know that we're real. And that is, and I see with women who work with me too, that especially in male and dominated industry like the commercial real estate, you learning to reveal, the feminine revealing allows them to use social media for the good. And so I think about my client Julia, who just has elevated now, has her own brokerage, because she got away from that old thinking of I'm in the minority here, and she's like, wait a minute, I've got a superpower that they don't know about yet. And she's like, now she's like hashtag the dark side diva. She went from like, oh, I'm in the minority, to like, oh no. So her reels are like her in high heels with a hard hat walking through warehouses. And you know what? And instead of like working it against us, take what people think is our biggest appendage and go, oh no, heck no. Right. And so anyway, that's also making art out of life. And I think that if we live our life as a living prayer, we walk around in one foot in gratitude and one foot in desire, and we allow ourselves to be the CEO of our life. And I know you mentioned you were on my website, and that's written all over there. And I truly can say my life is that. And I also will, as we're wrapping up, this is a fun place to kind of leave it. I think there's 10 women that live inside of us, and maybe you and I can have a separate conversation another time. 10 women that live inside of us, and what we do in our work is in the SakredShe method is you get to know all their personalities. Like there's the CEO version of us. There's the little girl, which you may call the inner child. I call her the little girl. There's also there's one called the dangerous challenger, who is like the scrappy street smart one. There's also the blissful pleaser, which is like that mother Gaia, that mother energy, because mothering is very masculine. Did you do your homework? But mother is just nurturing. Mother is just love. And we have all of them. So really there's 20, but because we have the toxic side as well, the shadow, but you learn to name them. And so when Sloan CEO shows up, for this, which is who you're talking to right now, with a lot of all the other energies, we generally are leading with 3. And I like to actually wake up the others. And because generally one that's leading the show. And what I like to do in my work is we actually will let her know through a practice and meditation and such that that it's time for her it's okay for her to take a back seat. My scrappy side, her name is Tammy with an I, 1M, wife beater t-shirt, roots, like barefoot, and remember I'm from South Carolina. So and cutoffs. I mean, she was scrappy and all the guys loved her, but nobody wanted to choose her. She protected me in my life after Dad left. And she also is the one who protected me so much that I didn't get to experience some things also, because I was always looking through the eyes of, when can I fight? Let me fight. Oh, they're going to hurt me. They're going to hurt me. And so she gave me boundaries, but not in a very healthy way. But she's also super fun and adventurous. So the pendulum swung way this way until I realized, where's my sense of adventure? I feel like I'm like this pretty butterfly that's been stapled to the wall. And then I'm like, all right, Tammy, let's go get that white beater on your jeans and take off your shoes. Let's go have some fun. And I don't think healing has to be so arduous. I don't think it has to be, there's going to be tears. We'll have snot and tears, and there's a lot of laughter. And like I said, the first emotion I want women to tap into is that joy. The second emotion I find that many women, including teenage girls, I love working with teenage girls, is like sacred rage, that rage that comes from not another minute more. I always use Rosa Parks as an example of sacred rage. I mean, she did it very regally, that's for sure, very regal, but she's like, not another minute more. I'm going up there. Right. And we all need, now I got goosebumps. That's the natural leader in all of us. How many of us have actually just, I mean, no pun intended, they're sitting in the back of the bus and they're not willing to raise their hand. If I hadn't raised my hand and been brave at that event with Tony, who knows where I'd be right now.
When you said Rosa Parks, it made me think about one of my clients I had earlier. And she said she was feeling like she's at a stage in her life where she feels like Harriet Tubman. And I was like, right. I said, when you get to that place where you can start leading others to freedom.
Yes.
Where you're leading them to freedom, but you're going back to the slavery quarters and leading more to freedom. And you just keep doing this. But along the way, you find that you're losing things that you need to have lost anyway.
Absolutely.
Things that were holding you down, things that didn't mean you no good, as you're still going and leading others to freedom. So I think
yes, sister. I love talking to peers and doing this work. It's great. It's like schluffing. We're always exfoliating. It's like we're always exfoliating. It's like getting a good pedicure when they're like scraping all that stuff off our heels, right? It's like we all need a good exfoliation. And but change is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, I like to say. And I was thinking about all the energy lately. It seems like there's a lot of change going on, and I like to call it like the boosters and rockets. They need a booster to get out of the atmosphere here to go into outer space. We all needed a booster. That was my Tammy for a long time. Your client, your friend who you're mentoring, is that Harriet Tubman energy is needed, and to be able to see, but you can let go of those qualities that maybe you don't need and see them as gifts, effectively blame them, and you keep going, because the world needs what you're offering, what I'm offering, what she's offering. And she doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher, as I mentioned earlier, to be making an indelible mark on the planet, because this is Earth School. Like, what are we doing? What are we studying? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. And I'll also say this too. I've asked God recently, like, let's lay off of less trauma and hard learning. I'm ready for some electives like basket weaving, cross stitch, in my school. Like, I'm ready for some electives, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that meme that says, okay, God, I'm done signing up for this. I'm done signing up for this.
Exactly. My pen has run out of ink. I am done.
Yeah. Well, Sandy, I thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed this, and I know that most, if not all, of the women are going to start come running to your website. Like I said, I've been there. I have enjoyed it. I've taken your quiz, and so I got to find in my schedule where I can. Because I'm going to try to squeeze you on in there because I think that you are offering wonderful,
Oh, thank you.
that is
Yeah,
life changing to women. Not just those who are joining us, but those of people like me, that lead.
yeah,
I lead, and I believe that your work is still would
thank you.
benefit me as well. And so again, so we're going to give you guys the if you look on the description bar, you will find the code that Sandy
Yes.
is giving us.
Yes, absolutely. And a great place to find me too is like this quiz, the sandysembler.com/quiz. I think Kelsey gave that to you too. That's a free teaching. And then there's a lot of DIYs, but we do have the code for you. And then I'm great with Instagram and Facebook too. So you can find me there as well. And that way I like to do a lot of teachings there. And I like to make some comedy out of it too. So yeah, it's interesting too. I do work a lot with people who are healers and teachers, and because the more our feminine energy is we can see and hold, and the masculine allows us to hold more space without consuming it all. So it's always a pleasure to talk to someone who's out there, doing the work. And I honor you and thank you for having me on and trusting me with your audience.
Oh no, thank you for coming and giving us this opportunity to even experience you in this space. I absolutely love it. I love women who are doing the work, not just talking about it, but actually doing it. And I love everyone that has joined us on today. I love everybody that is in our community. And so I want you guys to please go and support Sandy and her work. Please sign up. Some of you guys are in a space right now where you are needing to learn how to be more feminine and to release that masculine energy that you have been operating in. And one of the things that, especially for you single moms who are moms of sons, if you heard nothing else, listen to what Sandy said. She had to learn that she was emasculating her son. And that is something I wrote years ago, Sandy. Many people don't know this. I used to have a blog. I still do. I'm not as active, but something God gave me about 15 years ago was that, we want to blame men for a lot of things, but we as mothers have to take the responsibility of who we have created these men to be.
Oh, girl.
Let us learn where we have went wrong and let us begin to heal. So do not miss your opportunity. Hit Sandy up on all of her platforms, Instagram, Facebook, her website, and do yourself a favor. Even if you don't have the money, she has free resources that she has. Do it yourself.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you just mentioned Sacred Respect is a great course that really it helps you reset that relation with the masculine and learn how to trust them all. And also we give little tips on how to use this with sons as well. We also give out scholarships too. I have a sisterhood program, which is a 6-month program where I'm live. I also have mentorship and stuff, but we do offer scholarships. So there's always ways that somebody can do this work with me. And yeah, so thank you again for being such an advocate for, like I am. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for men. I think men are great. We need to honor them. We have a way of championing them, but we have a way of lighting them up, and it doesn't mean we are less than. We actually have a get. The feminine is life giving, and so there's something beautiful there. I mean, it's amazing too when we see, like, how many of us love it when we see a man like playing with their kids. That's his feminine, by the way, playing with the kids. And so we actually, there, when you start seeing things through the eyes, like I teach it, everything changes, because I know it sure as heck did for me. So again, thank you for being a champion for my work as well. And I love it. Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Yes, yes. And so, ladies, and we would see you again soon. Remember, as always, I love you, and I'm always praying for you.